Awesome. Hey, everybody. Thanks for being on. Sorry, we were getting a little bit of a late start. We had to make sure we had everybody on and ready to roll. Super excited for today. I know we have more. Yep. Okay. Everybody's kind of starting to roll in. Super excited for today, and we are going to be recording, so you guys can go back to this. We get a lot of questions around wealth building in the investing space, specifically nightly rentals and Airbnbs. And honestly, that's really kind of popular in most of all the areas that we are in. I know we have people on from several different places, not just Ohio and Kentucky and Indiana. However, I've got 3 friends who are great in this space. And anything that I know about an Airbnb, I learned from Heath. So really excited to have him share. He helped Adam and I make our first one really successful. And Mandy and Ryan have both had really good success in this space too. So I'll just, if we can, you guys just introduce yourselves real quick and maybe give a little bit of background just on your investment space with Airbnbs. Mandy, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm Mandy Mancini in Columbus, Ohio. I have kind of a gamut of different like Airbnb, midterm, short-term type rentals, as well as some long-terms. Right now, I have a luxury Airbnb that I do on a 2-night minimum. And then I also have more of like a midterm type of Airbnb, which I do for a minimum of 2 weeks at a time. And it usually books for a month or so at a time. And there's reason for that I can get into later.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we'll talk about that for sure. Heath?
I'm Heath Green, based out of Lexington, Kentucky. Kentucky Life Property Management is our company, so we are a short-term and long-term traditional property management company. We manage an hour radius from Lexington and Central Kentucky market. Currently, short-term wise, we have a little over 100 units that we're managing. And then we're working on development projects and launching those as well. We do design work, the whole 9 yards. So when it comes to short-term rental, our clients give them to us, we manage them, and it becomes passive income for them. They just get a direct deposit every single month.
Awesome. Okay, Ryan?
And I'm Ryan Conway. I'm an agent with consultants in Columbus, Ohio as well. I manage a grand total portfolio of 1 Airbnb that I purchased as my midlife crisis in the summer of 2020 at the beginning of the pandemic, down in Hocking Hills, about an hour or so away from my home. So dealing with some remote management stuff with that. And that's kind of a touristy type destination, or it was announced as one by our governor actually sometime during the pandemic there. But it was, yeah, kind of a reaction to can't go to Disney, can't go fly to places for vacation. So jumped into it early of getting one as a close vacation. And that market has completely surged ever since, of a lot of other people picking up on that idea. I just had the courage to do it because I think when I actually wrote the offer for it, I think we were drinking drinks on our patio at the time. And like, this would be a great idea.
Sounds like a good idea.
I was encouraged by Heath too, seeing him speak in front of the region once about this stuff and talking about the process. And I remember he introduced me as Smart B&B, which is now Hospitable, which is a fantastic platform. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, Hocking Hills is like blown up. It's been wild.
It's major right now.
It's kind of like the Gorge at home, Heath. I feel like in like Lexington, Central Kentucky area, it's like anybody is trying to get anything they can in the Gorge. Kind of same with Hocking Hills. Okay, so I know, and also you guys, if you have questions, will you please put them in the chat and we can fill them, because I'm sure many of you are going to have questions as we continue to go along with the Zoom as well. So let's start with, okay, Heath, you take this one first, and then we'll go kind of around. But what would be advice or things to know before someone decides to make an investment in a nightly versus like a long-term rental, would you say? Biggest differences there?
Yeah, I would say 1, making sure that you have the systems and the tools in place. If you're not going to hire a property manager, you got to be prepared to be on call 24/7 when it comes to nightly rentals. I know Mandy mentioned that she has a luxury rental that she does 2-night minimums on. So One, it's knowing your guest avatar if you're going to go towards short-term and nightly rentals. Does your market support 1 night minimums more? Is your property more leaning towards a 2 to 3 night minimum? Sometimes I think hosts oftentimes think, hey, I have this little 2 bedroom, 1 bath house. I don't personally have the time to do 1 night minimum, so I'm going to make it a 2 night minimum. Well, are you really shooting yourself in the foot and not becoming a profitable short-term rental because you just don't have the time for it? Compared to if you have a luxury style listing or a larger home, typically it makes sense to do 2 night minimums because if not, you're going to get people that just come in on a game day, or depending on where your market is, coming in for a wedding, and then it throws off your whole weekend, and then it's cutting into your profits that way for somebody that might want 2 to 5 nights. So one, it would kind of be knowing what your avatar is, knowing your market and what you're going into. And the second thing is making sure that you have the systems and the tools in place because you are on call 24/7. As much as you can automate and create technology to be from an AI side on pushing out communication and create automated messages, you still do have to be a personal touch in there to create 5-star experiences. And your cleaner might not show up one day, and you're going to have to be able to jump in there. If you're self-managing, light bulb goes out, internet goes out, you might have somebody there just for 1 night. We were doing this the other night until 2 a.m. trying to figure out the internet because somebody was there. Or you might just have a crazy person that wants a broom at 10 o'clock at night. And you're taking them a broom and a dustpan because they're going to leave you a 4-star review if not. So systems and tools, and then making sure you know your market and your area. The other thing too, with regulations changing in so many markets right now, we're experiencing this right now, not only with regulations, but saturation as well, is outweighing the pros and cons to each. So my rule of thumb is a short-term rental should bring 2 to 3 times the amount of income as a traditional rental. That way, if you're purchasing a property, you have a backup plan. But in order to get into the short-term rental space, you have to pay to play. So if you're not willing to invest a large amount of money up front into furnishing and getting the property to the quality that it needs to be competitive in a saturated market, then you probably should be leaning more towards long-term.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was hoping that one of you guys were going to talk about, is the upfront cost on short term is definitely, more than long term in most situations. Mandy and Ryan, anything you guys would add to that? As far as just the difference between short term versus long term for you all?
I think that people think that short term is like easy money. And I think it's the opposite of that. I kind of laugh when people are like, I want an Airbnb. And I'm like, but do you?
Yeah.
I think also like margins play such a huge part in it right now with, just with rate and the increase in prices and all of that. And I think, I self-manage purposefully because my luxury rental, it was my house, and it's like, it's so expensive. And I have my hands all over it all of the time. And I think that you can tell, unless you have a home run manager, which I have not found here, you can tell the difference. You can tell the difference in cleanliness. You can tell the difference in just quality that's there. I mean, we pay attention to what sheets are going on the bed.
Yeah.
So I think, just knowing that you have to be involved, even if you have other people involved.
Yeah.
And I don't think most people realize that, or even are prepared for that, or even the upfront costs. I mean, it's no less than $10,000 to get an Airbnb up and running.
Yep.
That's the low end.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the low end. I want to talk a little bit about that too. Ryan, anything different, especially with yours being an hour away from where you live?
Yeah, so I would agree with the same things. Try to find something that's already furnished like that. That's a huge value to it. When we got ours, it was not furnished at all. It was actually brand new at the time. Nobody had used it, lived in it, or anything like that.
Lucky somebody who likes to design and decorate.
Yeah, it helps being married to an interior designer though, and getting her a chance to showcase that. I love it when she does this stuff and spends other people's money, but I allowed it this one time to do it for, it was about, just like Mandy said, it was about 10 grand for us to be able to do, and that was a relatively small space. the remote management part. So I do self-manage it. And one of the reasons in Hocking Hills area, and I hate to throw people on their bus or other management companies, but they charge a pretty significant amount. I don't know what Heath, what you guys charge, but they're about 40 to 55% on average. Yeah. So I figured there's a little above where you guys may be at. And they use a lot of really old school practices. Like a lot of are like adamantly opposed to using Airbnb and VRBO. They just want to use their local site and people come to that and then they manage the bookings. It's ridiculous. They haven't transitioned yet to that. So going through and managing it myself using those platforms, like people complain about the fees of Airbnb and VRBO, but like they're doing the bulk of the work to market and source tenants, process payments, include insurance, things like that are in there, that it's a pretty nominal cost by comparison of doing that, outsourcing it or using one of those companies. For me to be able to do that, though, I had to have pretty strong develop strong relationships with a really great cleaning company that we're able to sync our calendars with, so they know exactly when somebody's coming in, when somebody's going out. They let me know when their people are going to be off, if there's a holiday, or so we can kind of forecast and plan for that too, so that we're not asking their cleaners to come out on Christmas Day or something like that. And then also having a really good handyman that's very reliable, and it's also significantly cheaper than what you get charged up here in Columbus. I think I had him go out to ours. Ours has fortunately got a lot of tree coverage, so our grass doesn't grow incredibly fast, so we only have to cut it maybe about 4 times a year. And I sent him, it got a little long the one time, and I sent him out there. He spent, I think, 4 trips going up there, cutting grass and doing a couple other small jobs. Sends me a bill and it's just under $200.
Wow.
So, like, can I get some of those people up here to do that on my house up in
Yeah,
Powell? It'd be
for sure.
fantastic. But it's having really good relationships with those people, keeping them busy when possible. They're reliable.
Yeah.
Has been a blessing.
Are you all using any other platforms besides Airbnb and VRBO to get bookings?
So VRBO syndicates to multiple different platforms that they own. So that's a pro there. I still think they're antiquated and outdated, and they're very difficult to deal with. However, it's one of those things where, you have to be in all spaces. Airbnb still, in our market at least, predominantly holds the market. They're the Zillow of the short-term world. Nobody's able to match or compare with them. And like Ryan said, I mean, at the end of the day, a 3% service fee that they're charging you is minimal compared to what they value that they can bring. I mean, yeah, it's a platform and sometimes it's hard to work with, but as long as you know how to use the systems and the tools and you're treating it, what's the word? We have a remote team member that used to work directly for Airbnb, so that's been a huge help right now because their systems and tools have drastically changed towards the host. They are dinging you more than ever right now, so you are having to be on edge and make sure that you are accommodating in the best possible way and documenting as well. So making sure that you're abiding by them and acting as a good host is always going to be helpful. We're launching a direct booking platform right now, but still, like Ryan said, I mean, the site that we just switched from, which was Hostfully or Hospitable, SmartBnB, which was turned into Hospitable, we're now switching into Hostfully, which is great for a multitude of different reasons. But like for VRBO and all of those bookings, for example, we have to use a payment center now to process. So that changes once you start doing other things and direct booking. So I would encourage people just to find a streamlined platform that helps, but use Airbnb and VRBO.
Yep. Okay. So switching gears, I know Heath, you do this, so you might start with this, and I think you both, Mandy and Ryan, you mentioned that you do, but how do you go about pricing your nightly amounts? And like, especially like, and this is something, so we are lucky enough to have the Kentucky Life in our area, and they do an amazing job. So I did not self-manage because Heath puts like little Kentucky chocolates out, and like, everything is perfect and the sheets are comfortable and all the things. However, I think a lot of people's question is, do you look out and say like, okay, here's when the Bucks are playing, here's when the Wildcats are playing, here's when Taylor Swift's coming to town? Like, how do you adjust the nightly to where you can be competitive yet still like Heath, you and I have a mutual friend in Charleston, and she's a little ticked. I'm sure she talked to you about this with her management company right now because she's the same nightly rate all year long. And there's a ton of stuff happening here that they should be bumping up her nightly rate. And she's like, what the heck? I'm at like 145 and I should be at like 300 when, the whatever, when Tyler Childers is here. So it's like trying to figure that part out. Will you touch on that, Heath, first, and we can kind of go?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a game, and it's actually kind of fun. It's one of those things where you have to be in, and that's part of the reason why AI plays such a big role into some of these platforms. The more you're manipulating and changing the back end of your platforms, the more exposure you're going to get, especially if you're a good host and you're accommodating guests. So we do a hybrid of two different things. So we have a system set up where manually an internal person is going through and checking calendars twice a week. Typically we're checking it every single day, but at least twice a week and adjusting rates and kind of playing with things. And then we also use a dynamic pricing software as well. If you're going to do this the right way, you're going to have to use systems and tools now because there's so much out there. It's just like the real estate industry. Like if you're not using things, you get left in the dust.
Well, actually, okay, sorry to interrupt you. I have to say this really fast. I've had you, Heath, probably on, 10 Zooms and in-person speakings over the last 3 years, and you've never said AI until this call. So now I'm like super curious of how all these things are changing with artificial intelligence and like are using Chat GPT, like all of that. I mean, it's changing so quickly that that can be another question, but anyway, keep going. But I do think that's crazy because you said it 2 or 3 times on here now. And I've never heard you talk about using AI before.
Yeah, so the property management industry's always been outdated, and we've all known that, but it's drastically changed in probably the past 12 months, especially short term. But so we're using a dynamic pricing software, but if you use companies, if you're self-managing, but you just need a little bit of help from the day-to-day, like Evolve or something like that, that's where they get you stuck. They go so much on the AI side that they lose that personal touch and the research side. So I hate to say this, but I'd almost recommend self-managing rather than hiring somebody like that because you're getting not the service that you're really paying for. But it's one of those things where like you have to be in constant lookout. I mean, that's why I say, and like Mandy said, it's not easy. It's a full-time hard job. Like, and what we've noticed now too is like we typically had our calendars open 6 months in advance. Well, with the amount of inventory that's on the market, you're having to be 12 months in advance now. So you're treating this just like a hotel. So we use AirDNA. I know Ryan mentioned that, and I'm on that all the time looking at things. They just recently redid their software depending on what you pay for, but I can look at hotel prices in the area. Our team is looking at concerts and things. 12 months from now, our prices are skyrocketing, but you're also having to like look at your competition. You're having to see like what amenities you offer versus what they offer. And you also have to know who your guest avatar is. And Mandy could probably speak to this about her luxury. Like there comes a point and a price for each rental. And it's just like listing something that you're not going to lower it down because you're not wanting to attract a certain kind of guest.
Mhm.
So that was actually going to be exactly what I started talking about. We trialed an error this year to see. We are heavy on the weekends. I mean, heavy through Buckeye season, heavy through summer. I crank at Thanksgiving. I crank for Arnold Classic. I mean, I'm talking like $750 to $1,000 a night. And I mean, I've gotten 1,200 before, which is insane. And this year we said, okay, let's see if we can take a step into these weekly rentals and have more rentals and maybe make a little bit more money. And as soon as we hit a certain price, my assistant helps me with this. We both looked at each other one day and we were like, this ain't it. We can't go to this price. And you felt it was a $50 shift and you felt it. It was so impactful. And what we were dealing with was just not okay. I would rather not make that $500 during the week and have $500 bookings every night of the weekend and just lose out a little bit and cover a mortgage than to have a headache.
Wait, did you say you increased it or decreased it?
We decreased it for the week during the week.
Okay.
And you know, I guess it was significant from where I had started, but it wasn't significant from where we were currently. But the shift was so huge. And you also find, you know, it's so interesting when I have people that pay the higher price and they're just like a family, or like maybe it's 5 people, it's always a great experience. But it's when it's a little bit lower in price and there's 9 people, that's when I have the calls like the string lights don't work, and you know, there's not enough spoons
missing.
yeah, just like the wildest stuff. And people do such weird stuff too. And so I'd rather keep a higher price, save my property, and not deal with crap.
Yeah, totally. Ryan, do you take yours in Hocking Hills up and down?
Yeah, what's making me laugh is we talk about like quality of sheets and towels and stuff. I've had experiences where it's like, no, get the cheapest towels you get, because people do some weird stuff to towels.
Weird.
I had one that was like, we got to bleach things often. So, let's see down. What I love AirDNA on there. It's really cool to be able to use comps and comparing these things. And I've had people ask me about investing in the area, and then also looking at like Athens, where Ohio University is, and I'm a Bobcat myself, and like it sounds like it's a great idea. It's the similar kind of concept, but if people are going to go to OU, they want to be walkable, drunk, stumbling distance from Court Street, not drive 30 minutes into the woods.
Right.
So like I've looked at those and tell them, hey, you're not going to get the numbers you're hoping to get because in that area that you think you're going to, and then you're thinking about mom's weekends and things like that. And I think it's funny, Mandy's talking about like the Arnold and stuff, because I have to be concerned about what weekend are people are going out and looking for Bigfoot. I think is one of the events that happens down there, and hippie fest and things. So it's all events that bring people in, just a different type. On those sites, like those, I always look at ones that they'll show the revenue, they'll show the occupancy, and they'll show that average daily rate or average nightly rate that's on there. And you'll see ones that are trying to maximize the average daily rate, sacrificing occupancy, ones that are trying to maximize occupancy, but try to do it at a lower average daily rate. So I think you should almost never be at like 100% maximum occupancy at any point. That means you're probably underpricing it. You're also setting yourself up for failure. That like we've had issues at ours at times. We've had hot tubs are the bane of my existence, but it's like we had like 21 out of 23 consecutive nights that were booked that one summer. I'm like, if anything goes wrong, like we got 4 hours between each person coming in to actually do something about it. And it may be a problem that can't be solved in 4 hours. So we might need that day. We might need that, you know, Wednesday or whatever, if you didn't try to maximize everything. So I've learned through that. We get a lot of, like in our area, trying to get to anywhere from about 50 to 60% occupancy is usually kind of ideal. That's really going to get you every single weekend when people do want to come out 2 nights, 3 nights, sometimes 4 or 5 nights on there. And where we're trying to figure out is not necessarily maxing out on those nights, but also trying to encourage like come a day early, come on Thursday night instead of coming on Friday night. How do I incentivize somebody to stay Sunday and just pay a lower rate to have Sunday night just so they could leave later? To try to increase our revenue without necessarily increasing the number of guests, because even like those turnovers and more, really putting more mileage on our systems, the toilets, the well, we got all those issues.
Yeah. Heath, do you think is 50 to 60% occupancy what you all shoot for?
Yeah, I would say depending on, I mean, we have some luxury rentals that depending on the time of year, I mean, sometimes they're 30 to 40% occupancy for the month. But in peak season, they should all be above 50%. But I mean, those clients were working in a different strategy. I mean, they're specifically only want a certain nightly rate. They also personally use it for some of their business purposes as well. So that's why those occupancies are lower. But if you're doing things the right way, there's no reason why you should be below 50%. You should at least book 15 nights a month.
Okay. Drew asked a question. Is there a specific number of guests that are easier to deal with? Is it more of a headache to deal with more guests for one booking? How do you deal with that?
I'm gonna say no because guests are crazy. I mean, you could have like a 1 bedroom house and they're gonna be the bane of your existence. Or you could have a 14 bedroom house and be completely fine. Just like Mandy said, it's like there's a certain caliber of guest. I'm a huge believer in don't put beds just to put beds because you have room. Like make it make sense
Yeah.
because you're going to create more issues and system issues. So it just depends on the property.
And I actually bumped down. When I started, I think I had like 12. And now I make people pay anybody over 8 to up to 10. Like, so that, you know, it's just a small buffer. But I had people tell me like the more beds, the better. And I would just rather not deal, because you also have to remember, like, that's more sheets, that's more towels. It is just so much more time. And I don't know that that extra couple $100 was worth it. People will lie, but you know, have cameras. I've busted people before.
Yeah.
The same.
I
I
feel like
being on a well too. That's like we're gonna run out of water if you bring like 10 people when we're only really serving 6 at most.
yeah. Yeah, that makes a huge difference, I would imagine, being on the well. I don't know, when Adam and I have recently been looking at places like for upcoming trips. And when I see like 80 beds in one, I'm like, I'm out on that. Like that does not appeal to me to stay somewhere where that many people have stayed. Okay, so gosh, we have a lot. And if you guys have any more questions, type them in the chat. But a couple just kind of quick things. And Heath, maybe we'll start with you again on this one. What are a couple, and I know you've shown graphs on this, and it's always my favorite slide that you show, but what off the top of your head are some of like the top things that people love when they're going to stay in an Airbnb that hosts should like really think about making sure that they have?
Yeah, I mean, one is a fully stocked kitchen. I mean, I don't care what market you're in. I mean, you're going to get asked for a strainer if you don't have a strainer. I think with so many dietary restrictions and trying to accommodate longer stays now, you need a fully stocked kitchen. And I think that's where some people try to skimp on, even if you're downtown, like have a fully stocked kitchen. It doesn't cost that much. The other thing that I've noticed, and we're seeing it in our market, is short-term rentals have kind of caught on. They're a little bit of a phenomenon, and everybody thinks they can make a lot of money, and they're doing all these crazy things, especially with developments and that stuff. That they're becoming a little bit more, even in the markets that aren't like we're not a vacation market. Even though we're getting people traveling here for bourbon horses and those kind of things, we're still not a vacation market. But yet we're now trending towards we're having to offer these kind of amenities like game rooms and pool tables and hot tubs and things like that. So, I mean, even in the smallest of spaces, the biggest thing is you just have to accommodate the guest avatar that you're trying to attract. And you need to be like the most visually appealing online as possible. And two, like the other thing, like when it comes to, I mean, I'll say it again, AI, the more check boxes that you can keep tabs, the more times you can check anything on a short-term platform, the better off your rankings and stuff are going to be. So like, for example, like Airbnb has like a rice maker. Like, I don't know who uses a rice maker, but we've started putting rice makers in all of our properties just because it's a box and we're trying to stay above the competition. So like the more stuff that you can click, the better off you're going to be.
Wow, that's good. Okay.
Yeah, was that like a newer feature Airbnb started doing? Because I started getting prompted with all sorts of random questions from them, and it was like, do you have a crib that's there? And then like, what type of crib? And I was like, it actually worked out perfect because like my kids are out of cribs now, so like we just cleared out our basement and then took it down there, and now it's an amenity.
Yeah. Anything, Mandy or Ryan, that you guys have like added to yours that you feel like people love?
I think, and this isn't an ad, but cleanliness is the number one thing. Like, I can't stress that enough. And if you've ever stayed anywhere, I've stayed in hotels where I've been like, you're kidding me. Like, I can't be here. In New Orleans, I call it the dirty W. And it's like, why does this hotel look like this? Because you're paying a premium to stay there. So you want it to feel, so if you have like pillows that are going to shit, get rid of them. If you have, throw away your washcloths, throw away, like re-up. Don't be afraid to put a little bit of money, touch up your paint, those little things. And then I think like we added really cute chairs to our back in like a circle with a fire pit. And I always have wood there, and whether the lighters stay or not, I don't know. I get asked every freaking time. Sometimes I'll throw s'mores in there. Like if I know there's kids or I know it's a different type of group, but just like stupid stuff like that and just being thoughtful, it really does make a huge difference.
It's kind of the same with our real estate businesses. It's the experience that you're getting. Yeah, it really, really, really matters. Like even Mandy graciously has let me stay at her place. And actually, Abby, I think, were you with me when we stayed there? Yeah. No, was it Nancy? I feel like it was Abby. I don't know. Anyway, and Mandy had vintage cola Ollipops in the fridge for me when I got there. I was like, yes. But the experience really does matter when you're, I mean, you know, I just think that that's like when you're talking about reviews, which are the name of the game, right? And I mean, that's your livelihood.
Yeah, I mean, we got away from this a little bit, was doing like personal written note cards, or like we had signs made where the cleaners would like put the guest name, but sometimes there's a gap and then you get a last minute booking and then somebody else's name is on there. But what our quality control's been doing here recently, like get the clearance flowers from Kroger. Like, no joke, those things probably last longer than the ones that you pay full price for.
They do.
I don't know what they do to them, but like you pay, like the other day I bought a bouquet for like $5 and it was originally $42. It's still in there a week later. And then like it just, the fresh flowers is like a touch, and like doing like little personal note cards. But I mean, you're just having to always think ahead of the game.
Yeah, I love that. Anything that you have, Drew asked this and I had this as one of mine too. Anything that you would avoid adding?
So, and I
Hot
feel
tubs.
like Ryan's going to jump on this too. That's exactly. So we actually turned off our like jet bathtub in the Airbnb because people kept flooding our first floor. So now there's no pictures, there's no mention of it, and I will not turn it back on because I literally have cleaned up like 2 or 3 floods, and I'm like, what were you doing exactly? So I think the tub thing, especially like a tub like that has jets and like all the things, I feel like it just lends to chaos. And I feel like Ryan's going to say that about his hot tub too.
Well, yeah, the hot tub's been a pain and a learning experience in many different ways. In fact, when it's frozen over in the winter time, when the rolling power outages that happen in Hocking Hills kick it off, and then it freezes over. So I've been down there before, taking boiling water to pour on it to defrost it, using a shovel, all sorts of stuff to tear that out, and like my hands just like freezing, grabbing ice and pulling out of there. So that's been fun.
But when you're going to a cabin, I do feel like you kind of look for a hot tub.
I was gonna say, like, that's the thing, is like you're looking at those, and I don't know, I'm even right, I can't believe I'm saying this, but like even in Lexington, like to try to stay ahead of things, like I'm working with clients on things that they can add, and hot tubs come up and we're encouraging them. You just have to know what you're getting into, because they're gonna drive you bonkers, especially if you have a same day turnaround and somebody had a little too much fun in the hot tub and you got to drain it and you got to fill it back up and it's not going to be hot enough in time.
That's true.
But my advice to that too would be just like go simple. Like you don't need the speakers and the lights and all the crazy party stuff. Like it needs to just be hot water.
Yeah, definitely.
I actually met my handyman down there because I was showing another cabin and he was draining a hot tub because somebody poured beer in it. I was like, if he's going to that extent, this needs to be my guy to work with.
I've had a kid go number 2 in one.
I was just getting ready to say that, or wait until someone goes number 2 in yours.
And left it for us.
Oh my gosh.
We had that with sheets.
Oh, yikes. I remember one time we were walking downtown and it was that nice Airbnb. And do you remember that? They left like drug needles and stuff in there. I was like, what? And it was an expensive one. And we were like, what are these people doing? Like it was nuts. They busted it was a hole in the glass, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In one of the
It
windows.
was a historic building and we had a huge rock thrown through and then came in and there was like stuff spray painted. Yeah, it was a mess.
Yes, Drew is right. People are crazy. Okay, Kelly asked a great question that actually I think a lot of people want to know about. What types of loans did you guys use when I know Mandy, you kind of turned your house into one, but any others, like any type of financing advice that any of you would give on those? And I can share what we did too.
I think DSCRs are great. But I think margins are really tough right now. I think those rates are really high. I also am just not a person that believes you should put 20 or 25% down on anything. I think a lot of these places you can buy as second homes, and you just have to find the right lender, because conventional financing is no longer loving the second home thing because they know we're doing things like this. I personally, and like just a different season of life, I was single and I have house hacked every single property. So every property that I own, I've sold 2 over the years, but the 5 that I still have, I've lived in all of them at some point. And so like one has an FHA, they've all been low down payments. And I live in them for a year or 2, and then I move on. And actually my luxury Airbnb, I bought that as like my grown-up house is what I called it. And I lived in it a year, and I ended up buying a $300,000 house kind of in the hood and moving to that because I knew I could make so much money on my nice house.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what you're willing to do.
Yeah, you have had a great, like your plan has really paid off though, I feel like for you, because living in them and then turning them over has been awesome.
Yeah.
Pete, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I was gonna say that's great advice. Another thing too is like the biggest factor I would say is the insurance portion. Just because so many insurance companies are not familiar with short-term rentals, and will put clauses in there that will end up coming to bite you. So it's just making sure that you have like a good relationship and understand that portion. Another thing that like the 3 that we personally have, we don't own. They're all rental arbitrage. So like that's another possibility. You have a client that can't sell something, or you're just wanting to kind of test the market. I mean, that was where I was at. Was we had a client that didn't want to test, and then I have a warehouse full of furniture that I need to get rid of. So I just said, hey, I'll just rent 3 of these properties, and this is what we'll try. And I'm not stuck with it. You know, I'm in a month-to-month kind of lease. I already had the furniture and that kind of stuff. And I'm kind of helping the client, 1, and 2, I'm also making a little extra passive income.
Yep. Ryan, anything different?
We used a second home loan to be able to do it 10% down at a time where they didn't have all the additional fees and stuff. So I was shocked when I had a client that said that they came across that, and it was fortunately at like the 3% interest rate too. So they brought that to my attention. I called up my loan officer. I'm like, can I really do that? And he's like, yeah, you can do that. I'm like, cool. And it was like within a week, I'm in contract on something.
Also, if you're married or like in a relationship, like learn how to work the system of who buys what and when. My husband just bought our 80 acres himself. I had to remove him from every property we own. I had to do quick claims to like free up that he wasn't responsible for actually just like taxes and things like that. But that was so quick, and we got to do it with 10% down because he actually did it as his like residence. And they're just loopholes. And we don't know what we're doing with that property. We have no idea. We had an opportunity with a cabin in 80 acres. And so we took it. And I think if you're going in and not being fraudulent, I think it's okay. I mean, you have to just learn how to kind of work the system. And this is the way all investors do it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, totally. I'm trying to remember, I think the first on Wabash, Heath, I think we just took we work with a great local bank, by the way. I would say if you aren't working with a great local bank, definitely you should be, because they're so much easier to work with. But I think we did a commercial loan. We do a lot of commercial loans. They might be a smidge higher on the interest rate, but they also don't tie up a lot of like our personal credit and stuff. So we can do more stuff. And just like Mandy said, Adam and I definitely, like, he's on some stuff, I'm on some stuff, we're on some stuff together. Like, we're going to figure it out to be what's the best deal, to be honest. But I think we put 10% down and did a commercial loan on that, and it ended up being great. But he found us a great deal, but we ended up selling it because COVID hit and we were kind of, I look back now, Heath, I'm like, dang, I wish we wouldn't have sold that, but it worked out. I mean, it was fine. But we're actually in the process right now of looking at, because the Charleston market is just insane and we have a lot of equity in our house here. We're trying to figure out, like, instead of that sitting there, what could we take that and go do with it? Everything is expensive, but I would love to find like a little cute cabin, or something, and be able to have it where we could stay there too, but then rent it out also. But I think there's a lot of different options. Hopefully we've given you some good ideas, Kelly, but I would say, even like what Ryan said, I mean, a lot of us have a lot of equity in our houses right now, and really wealthy people will tell you, don't go pull that out if you're going to use it to like buy a new car or go on vacation, but your money should be making you money. And if you have a lot of equity in your home right now, why are you not using it? Yeah. Like, why would you not use that to go have investments? It's crazy to me.
I also think like on the like Cabin, Hocking Hills, like places like that, a lot of this stuff doesn't hit market, and it's kind of like the good old boy network, and it's actually like Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist are talking about this land and they're doing this and they're doing that. And if you can get plugged in that, sometimes you can get seller financing, sometimes you can get, because it literally is the good old boy network. I heard about the land that I was getting. My best friend owns the land right next door. We won on it because they didn't want to sell to the Amish who were going to clear the land, and they wanted it to give somebody that was going to keep it in a family. So you have to like play those parts, and we will keep that land for a really, really long time. We weren't lying. So it's like, get plugged in. If there's a place you want to be, go and kind of immerse yourself in that area, because people will talk and tell you about what you need to know. And some of these people have owned this land for so long. The people we bought from bought the land for $3,000 like in the 60s, and we should have asked to seller finance and we just didn't. But that, now looking back, I think that would actually have been the play. And I think some of these people are sitting on so much money, they have no idea. And why not have a monthly payment where they're not going to pay these huge amount of taxes?
Yeah, we did seller financing on one too, and it was like we did it for 2 years, and it was a great thing,
it's so great.
It turned out to be so great for us, because also we weren't tied up at the bank, and if we wanted to go get more, we could. So that was really great. Antoinette just actually asked that, and I think that's, Mandy, you kind of answered that, but a lot of times to find great deals, you're going to be looking at FSBOs, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist. Like, it might not be on your MLS. It's probably not going to be on your MLS. So you do.
And I think talking with other agents, like agent relationships, like we have a girl in our office right now that's going after all this like subject to financing, and they are hitting it so hard, and there are deals there. Those are the only places you're going to find deals right now. Stuff that hits the market is not a deal. And so if you can have those agent relationships and just start kind of like combing through who and what they're involved with, I think you'll be able to find what you want.
It does. You guys, actually, it's kind of a lesson here too, because you do have to put in a little bit more work when you want to find the deal, just like you would with anything else. But I remember when Heather was looking for her second house here in Charleston, I mean, we looked for months on the market, and then we just got on the golf cart and door knocked an entire weekend. And I mean, ultimately that we ended up finding her an amazing deal, and it had just hit the market, but we kind of knew about it before because we door knocked the neighbor. So it was like, sometimes you just have to get out and, like you said, in the area that you want to be in, go talk to people and go drive around, because it is harder once they've hit the market, in my opinion, for it to be a great deal. For sure. Okay. One more question. Ryan mentioned he uses Hospitable for a PMS. Any syncing issues at all, or has any double booking happened with multiple platforms? Great question, Tara.
Early on in using those, I think I got trying to use too many things at once. So I was using AirBNB, Hospitable. I was also using Lodgify, and I was trying to do this multi-channel thing, and I think I messed it up at some point. So we did end up with some double bookings. And that was stressful dealing with that and kind of having to ruin somebody's vacation to deal with it. But I've since gotten all that stuff synced. It is necessary to have one of those, to have kind of the making sure it has a channel manager so that they are able to speak to each other, and not have that happen where like VRBO can't see that you have an Airbnb booking that's in there.
Heath, anything you'd add to that on the platforms, double bookings or anything?
I mean, it can happen, but I mean, it's one of those things you got to be able to make sure that you're going into your systems and setting them up correctly. Take the time on the front end to like do what you're supposed to and not try to like overcomplicate things. We just had this happen, unfortunately, with switching up to the new platform that we're using. And within a 24-hour period, we had like 12 double bookings. And then we have some properties that have calendars where like you can rent the whole house or you can rent a certain portion of the house.
Yeah.
And those obviously all open. So it's making sure that like, no, if you're going to have a back end platform, walking through the steps to make sure you understand how to sync all calendars up. Once you get them synced, you should never have any issues.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Quick couple rapid fire really fast. What do each of you believe makes you a great host?
The experience factor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say experience and just,
Mhm.
I'm lucky. I just have a really good property.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like you are OCD, and I think that makes you a good host too.
Thank you. That was very nice.
Said with love. Brian?
I've got a good cleaning crew because they handle a lot of that stuff for me, so I don't have
Yeah.
to. Good
That's
system.
a huge
Barely even have-
plus.
Your
Yeah.
cleaners are the life expectancy of your short-term rental.
That's great. Yeah, that is big time great. Okay, what advice would you give to somebody starting their first? Just like quick advice.
Do your research, be prepared to spend money, and don't try to skimp.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Talk to people that have done this. I actually have friends that are real estate agents and they tried to do this in a market I told them not to. They spent more money than they should have. And when I say they are losing their ass, I can't even imagine the impact. We know, we'll tell you, and we're not giving it to you straight for any other reason than to help. I mean, we've tried and true it. I mean, I have a rhyme or reason why one's on a longer term rental and one's on a shorter term rental. And so I think just listen and go after the people that have done it. I mean, that's what I did. I just kept picking people's brains.
Yeah, I love that. Ryan?
So you have to accept that you cannot make every person happy. We have had people giving us rave reviews about the mattress that's in our place. Ask me where I got it from. Walmart. And we've had other people say this is the worst sleep I've ever had. And it doesn't matter. Like, you're not going to make every single person happy with things. And it's also weird, some of the people that stay there. I think once we had a couple that was like their marriage was hinging on this stay in our cabin, their time spent together, like it was make or break their marriage. I'm like, dude, don't put that weight on me. I'm not a party to this. Like,
Yep, love it. I'll give one little quick piece of advice just for anybody that needs to hear this. Heath will totally laugh when I say this, but my biggest piece of advice, especially for your first one, is you aren't going to live there. So while you don't need to skimp, it also doesn't have to be like your house. I was very attached to having like really specific things and some of it would like, get ruined or like, it can go missing, or it's like, you're not going to live there. So while you want to make it nice, it doesn't have to be like you're going to live there necessarily. And I think it's hard, to kind of get over that in the beginning, at least for me, it was. But even on the 6 rentals that I just built, Heather was like, don't do this, don't do that. I'm like, really? You don't think it needs backsplash? Really? And she's like, you're not living there. Like, it doesn't, like, these people are great without that, and so I think it's just keeping that in mind, because especially if you're remodeling something, once you start, it is like, you just find another and another and another.
It's something that I feel like I sound like a broken record to my investors all the time. Like I turn around and I'm like, you are not living here. Why are you even talking about that? Like, no one cares. People treat them like rentals. We are so good about IKEA, home goods, like making inexpensive things look really, really good and high end. And it's really the way that you present it. stop worrying about your style and worry about the trendy style, because crazy enough, that's all people want. They want the cowhide rug and the neon sign and stuff you would never put in your own home. And so you do have to really disconnect. It's something I keep reminding myself in every house that I've lived in up until this point is like, no, you don't need to do that. No, you don't need to update that, because you're never going to get that money back.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if you go searching for the perfect like furniture piece, search high and low, consignment, wherever you got to find it. When somebody goes and breaks it accidentally, you're going to spend all that time going and finding it again. Whereas IKEA is right down the road and it's easy to find the little pieces and put it back together again.
Yeah, totally. Abby, the Dolly themed house in Nashville. I've stayed in a couple of those. Kelsey Jarbos is really, she did a great job with her new like Barbie Dolly themed whatever too, but some of those theme ones, yeah, if you're in a place like that, also can be great. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you guys so much for being willing to share and just giving advice. We'll definitely be pushing this out, and thank you guys for being on and learning. And I do, I will say, oh, awesome. Thank you, Heath, for answering that. I will say Drew asked a great question in the chat. How do you identify the right market to do this in? And honestly, all of us have done them all in different markets, and there's really not, I mean, I hate to sound like Gary Keller, but I know Gary would say it's not about the market, it's about the right deal. And so there is, I mean, if you're gonna, buy and then you're looking for the perfect time to sell, you might want to pay attention to the market, but really it's when you're just buying and holding, the market doesn't matter. Like you just find the deal and go after it.
And look for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Like that's the other thing. It's about the deal. I mean, you might not be thinking you're getting ready to buy a luxury home, but the market that you could invest in might not have a lot of luxury rentals, and there's a demand for 5+ bedrooms. Well, then guess what? You should probably go to 5+ bedrooms instead of investing in where 60% of the market is, which is 1, 2, or 3 bedrooms. So understanding that factor of it too.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Awesome. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Appreciate you all. Have a great
you.
day.
Thank you.
Thank you. See ya.